called the structural holes in organization, and people who are able to connect and build the structural holes get more paid. It's a very provocative theory. He's known as an expert. So when I started working with the University of Chicago, this idea came back again. And we have been, since then, for the last 6 years, just building something called Orgulence. We'll take you through that. But this is the connection. And the background is, otherwise, for the last 26 years, we were largely working with organizations in the area of culture, leadership, and change. So I put some keywords up there in the first slide. We say this is a new way to see, understand, measure, and develop organizing. And it's not just a bundle of words. So quick reflection possibly we need to do is, how do we try and see an organization today? Most of us who are here, your organizations have maybe thousands of people. How do I visualize this organization? How do I see it? And how do I understand this? Then further, seeing is one, and then how do I really try to understand this organization? And how do I measure some of those things? And we will get into the next slide. What do we measure in organizations typically? And of course, when you measure, there is this intent that we would love to develop from that measurement. We need to do something. So that's an invitation for today. I may talk a bit biased because I think we just finished our third version of this product. And that's also one of the reasons we said we will do this webinar, to talk to the clients of what this can, how the new way of seeing, understanding, and measuring and developing organizations could be a much better choice for organizations. So that's an intention. I think if you can just move that. So what do we measure now? Love to hear. There are, of course, obvious ones, like we measure performance by looking at profitability, market share, top line. So let me hear some sound bites from you. What are the things that we measure in organizations? Anybody can. I call this popcorn style, so anybody can pop up from anywhere.
Performance.
Performance, correct, of employees.
People's happiness, employee happiness,
Employee happiness,
culture,
Activity.
Attrition, I'd say to that.
vision. Yeah. What else?
Tension, tonality of interaction.
Say that once again.
I'm saying some kind of a, so an organization at the end of the day is people coming together, interacting, and then we can look at the tonality or the tension that's involved in that.
You're not asking what all possible we can look at. Currently, when we talk about measurements, what are the things that we measure? We'll go there. Currently, what do typically we measure? Okay, let me throw some
Efficiency,
efficiency.
effectiveness.
Do we measure engagement? I think
Yes, we do.
all of you who are sitting here use some kind of a tool to measure engagement. Some of you in your professional life would have used some tool to measure, try to. And some of you, you would have used some tools to measure a specific team effectiveness. And a lot of companies have a concept called HPO, highly productive teams, high potential teams. So they have a framework to measure. In fact, one of the multinational pharma company that we used to work every year would look at a tool to measure high-performing team sports, how the teams are doing. So we do measure engagement, we do measure culture, we do team efficiency, we do happiness. We are trying to now measure inclusion, We measure attrition, we measure productivity, we measure profitability. And when you see this, you can quickly figure out that you can divide this bundle of things that I mentioned into two buckets. Let me check from you. What would be the two buckets? All the stuff that you alignment between two person.
Effectiveness and efficiency.
Okay, there's one way to look at it. What else? What are the other way we can figure out to put it into two buckets? All that we heard.
Qualitative, quantitative,
Business
perhaps.
focus, sorry.
Qualitative and quantitative. Some are metrics, hard numbers, profitability, market share, top line, growth. The hard numbers. Nobody has any confusion. Say that we did 20% more, sales team, oh yeah, that's clear. They can have arguments about, okay, this 20% more happened because of this happened or whatever it is, but it's a hard number. So we look at certain things that we measure are objective. Certain things that we measure are subjective, which we use the word qualitative. So what are some of the top 2-3 things that we measure which are subjective? And we do that very rigorously and we put in energy, effort.
Culture, happiness,
Culture,
subjective.
happiness, engagement, collaboration, team efficiency. These we can call as subjective. Now, how do we measure? So I can just take an example. So just give one word, culture. And you decide that you have to create a tool to measure culture in your organization. What is the process? We all have studied this in our MBA, by the way. Nothing big rocket science. I need to figure out how am I going to measure the culture in my organization.
Feelings.
So what is
What are the
rewarded?
steps?
So what's rewarded, what's punished in a sense, some kind of a metric around that. If, gives you clues around what might be acceptable and what is generally lauded as in
Got
the behavior.
Or another one that suggestion came in the box, you can just go Hofstede's model of culture. There could be in the market some culture assessments. You can ask, Poonam mentioned about values, beliefs, and behaviors. But let me tell you from an academic perspective, whenever you want to measure something subjective, the first thing that you need to do before you seek which tool or before you say anything is to create a definition of that concept. Which means if you wanted to measure happiness or culture, you got to have a definition of what the hell is that, because it's a concept. Concept means different meaning in different people's mind. Okay, let me give you an example. I think Neeru has been talking very, very strongly about happiness. So let me put her. When we think about happiness, a country that's very happy, which country comes up in your mind?
Finland.
Bhutan.
I mean, I know the report.
How many people will
Finland.
say Bhutan? By the way, I lived in Bhutan for 5 years. There is no happiness. Because the way they define happiness is different. So in the one of the measurement, Bhutan's score is 73 and Finland is first. Because the result that you will get will be based on the definition that you have. So if you have to measure culture, you go to have something called a definition of culture. If you have to measure happiness, you need to have a definition of. And if you wanted to measure engagement, so what is the first thing you need to have?
Define engagement.
Define engagement. Shanga, can we move to the next slide, please? So let's do a test try. Think for 30 seconds and give me your definition of the word engagement. Okay. So most of us are in this field, in the corporate world. We have heard about engagement, and every year we do an engagement survey. So what's your definition of engagement? All I can guarantee is one thing. If in the room today there are 68 people, if I do this seriously, I will have 68 different definitions. Let's try it. Test it. Test. We have done this. Can
When you
somebody
feel
share?
engrossed, may I go ahead, Santosh?
Please,
When you
please.
feel engrossed, when you're in the moment of flow and that particular organization or the activity holds your interest, then you feel engaged. If you lose interest, you're disengaged,
One of
whether
the
in the job or whether in your, whatever.
theory in creating definition is, if you want to measure, in the definition you bring indicator, not another concept. Explain. Your definition should have visible indicator, only then I can measure, right? I can't have a concept in a definition, because then you will have to define that concept. Flow is a concept. You tell somebody the state of flow, someone might ask, is there a waterfall nearby, or is it, what are you talking about? Different people have different meanings.
Can I say that whenever I feel like going to office, then I feel that I'm engaged.
Good.
And
So you are
feeling is a
creating,
concept.
okay, you're creating an indicator that attendance and the feeling can be directly proportional to engagement. This is how we create. I'm not saying yours is right, but you are on the
Attendance,
right.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we build. So your definition need to have very clear, visible, measurable indicators. And then we go on. Any vague idea how big is in industry is engagement? When we checked yesterday, engagement surveys, just creating a tool for engagement and helping organization to measure engagement, is an $800 million business, which is going to increase into $3 billion. Now, interestingly, none of the people who are measuring engagement has a common definition. Because different tools and different consulting firms have different definition on engagement.
And even so, if it is different for every organization as well.
If they have created the tool, I'm only using, if you are using a tool, I might use tool from X, consulting firm. So I am not measuring engagement actually, Vishali. I am measuring the definition they have created and the indicators they have created.
Okay.
And if I use another tool, they have a different definition, different indicators, I get different results. It's true. In the current way of measurement is asking people their opinion. And when you share your opinion is based on the meaning you give to that concept. Opinion changes. So the first point, your opinion about something that, okay, my manager really care for me is one of the questions, typically in an engagement study. Now, what is care for you is different from what is care for somebody else. Someone, if his or her manager in that morning would have been pretty strict, and while filling up the survey, can say my manager doesn't care for me, because that's the meaning that I gave. And that's the data that I get. I'm taking engagement as an example. I can replace this slide with the culture, with the team effort, anything which is not objective or related to finance. Attrition is okay. But the reason for attrition is subjective. Different theories can come up. But if I say that I have 18% attrition, that's a direct objective measure. So the point that I wanted to make is any measurement need to happen based on a definition. And if you are using multiple definition, if as practitioners, we don't have an agreed upon definition, our tools, whatever we use, the results will be different. And we may be sitting in a circle, not really figuring out what we are measuring and what we are getting. Any wild guess in currently by using one of these tools like this, which takes people's perception, measured the engagement and took an average in the US. By the way, that process is wrong, but the release US companies are showing only 30% of the employees are engaged based on those definitions. Now come to the fundamental question. So I'm saying the way we have been seeing, the way we have been measuring might not be the best way because our definitions are wrong or different. Two, people are expressing based on their feelings and understanding at that moment in time. Three, people are giving their own meaning to. One of the classiest example I have seen, most of this kind of a diagnostic tools are one question. You trust your leadership or something similar where the word leadership will come. And if you have a 10,000 large organization, you don't figure out whom they mean by leadership, the guy who is filling up. Who is leadership for that person? That became an ambiguous question. So I'm going to transition saying that, okay, if this is the case with the current way of doing, what else is possible? Sangha, can you move into the next slide, please? So at this stage, my invitation is to have an open question that can there be an alternate and more objective measurement of organizational phenomena? Organization phenomena about engagement, about culture, the climate, the happiness, the inclusion, multiple things we keep trying to measure. Is there an alternative and more objective way to do it? I want to pause for a second. While we have moved into technology and we are using a lot of technological tools in HR, but they are all using the same frame. For example, when you have new joinees joining, and if there was a rule that an HRBP will keep in touch with this new joinee once in a week, today you have a bot to do that. Chatbot is doing. But fundamentally, you're doing the same thing. So we may use technology to ease our day-to-day job. That's easy. I used to do hiring in this way. So I have a platform or an AI-powered tool that helped me to scan through the resume faster. Otherwise, what we were doing, technology is doing. But what I'm going to take you is showing you a different frame altogether. If the way you're looking at it is different, how you will be looking at and what you will be doing will be also different. So this tool is not just going to reduce your workload on a day-to-day basis. Maybe it will stretch your brain more than you ever thought. Can you move into the next one, please? Yeah, here is where you have to spend a few minutes, please. On your left, you see an org structure of a team. On your right, I'm showing you the relationship and connections between these people. Either for professional reasons or for personal reasons, that person go to the other person whom the arrow is going. there is a relationship. And in some cases, you see an arrow going and coming back, which basically means it's a very reciprocal relationship. I go to that person and that person also comes to me. So what you people who are there in this structure, which is shown. I want you to wear the hat of, have you ever read Sherlock Holmes books? I used to love it when I was, in the school and college. So if you want to wear your Sherlock Holmes hat and look at the network diagram, just this network diagram. What assumptions, what insights, what theories that you can suggest?
Manual is the center point. Manual.
Manual is the center point in the diagram, but there are only 3 people going to manual.
And the 3 has indirect reportees of much more.
Correct.
So
Yes.
Stuart's team is not very socially connected.
So what else can you assume? Stuart's team is connected, right? Charles' team is not connected.
Yes.
Hi.
Charles' team is also not connected.
No,
I would go on to
not
say,
connected. Yeah,
audible?
please.
Hi. So
Go.
I would say that when I compare Donna, Stuart, and Charles, Donna's team is more of connected with each other. So there is no asymmetry of information in that team. But when I look at Charles only he's the information person. So there is an asymmetry. So whatever Harold, Carol, and Vin says, it only goes to Charles, and Charles does not. Rather, there is no interaction back between Harold, Carol, and Vin. So Charles holds certain information that the other team might not. Stuart, to a certain extent, Bob seems to be a different person, because Bob is the person who talks to Fred and Sharon in Stuart's team, but Fred and Sharon does not speak. So if I look at it, it's very likely that Bob is information giver, but that is where. So Charles is a person that I might be very wary. So if he is moving out, then I might need to find somebody in that position, or somebody who will be more from that point of view. So there are a few brokers, asymmetry, and all those things were visible here.
What
So
else?
in the normal organization chart, Manuel seems to be the center person, but in the organic or the network diagram, Nancy seems to be the most critical person, because even Manuel reaches out to Nancy, and all the other Stuart, Charles, and the other team members of Donor are all related to Nancy, and Nancy seems to be a critical person in the network diagram.
Very nice. That's true. What else?
Yeah, so it's very clear that there is a formal structure and there is a structure that's actually operating. So for a message to get across, if this awareness is not there, then the organization might be trying out, multiple things, but message may not get across.
Thank you. Let me provoke some of those things. If we were to make an assumption of whose team is more engaged, now I'm trying to get into concepts. Can very observable data can be changed into a concept? Whose team is more engaged from network perspective?
Donna's
team.
Whose team is less engaged?
Charles.
Now you're creating a theory. Engagement is directly proportional to personal relationship people form. Because only through that you can get work done. What else? So somebody mentioned about Nancy is more influential in the system than many people. You can actually do another one. Somebody mentioned also about communication flow. You can do a calculation on how many hopes each of these people need to take to reach somebody else in the system. If Nancy wants to reach Carol, how many hopes? Hopes means you have to ask somebody to introduce me or take me out with a dinner with that person. So how would Nancy reach Carol?
Two Charles.
Correct. So one hope, the second hope is Carol. Now, data science now can add algorithms to it. So data science simply use broadly three kind of algorithms called degree centrality. Who is in the center of the network? Second, called between centrality. Who is a bridge between two networks? And third, called a pulse taker, which look at who is positioned in a way in the network where from that point information can reach everywhere. Suppose there are networks and you add sociological theory. So one of the sociological theory you came up right now is when people do not have personal relationship with each other. That's a sociology theory. Now you are adding data science theory into multiple algorithms. And we can actually now calculate. Now, for example, which team may have higher chances of attrition?
Charles.
Charles team. Who in this time, when you look at the network diagram, may be overloaded with work?
Donna.
And Nancy.
Yeah.
Equal number,
Yeah,
right?
Nancy. Yes.
And are they reducing the execution speed? I can be curious to find out.
Maybe.
Because they could also become a bottleneck. So simple network diagram is able to show you multiple concepts and very plain. It's just straight. This person goes to that person and that person goes to this person. That's the data. Now the question we need to ask is, how do we collect this data from the companies to make this your organization networks? We're going to take you now out of the slide deck into the real product of if you're doing this, what is that somebody gets? How do we get the data on personal and professional network? We divide human interactions within an organization either as a professional connection or as a personal connection, or it is both. You know, some of the clients that I work with, I will say, oh, it's just a professional relation. Some of the clients that I worked with, maybe I worked with many, many years together, and that professional relationship has moved also into a personal relationship. So it's both. And there are people whom we only have personal relationship. We don't talk much about work. So how do we connect this data from the companies? That's what we will show you. Yes, so Sangha, if we can get them to straight into our interface. And the good news is, it's a first thing, it's a survey that comes to you in this way, to every employee in the organization. How the structure will work. So it's a little bit of play. So when people fill up, when you add, you're actually creating a network diagrams. And then they go to the next page. They click. It's a pretty intuitive thing. So if you can click next and move to the next one, please.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So these connections, they will also be dependent to a large extent on the role that people are playing, right? So I
Yes,
might be connecting with somebody because we are in a certain role and we are required to connect. And if
correct,
my role changes or his or her role changes, I may not connect so often.
correct. It is true. So we will be also knowing when you look at the network diagram, one, is it a purely professional connection? It is a role-based connection. Suppose I know that this person go to his or her manager for work-related thing. So we know that it's a role connection. Because all these people, we would also have a data about their designation, their role in the organization, their years of experience. So that all can be analyzed.
They're in big organization
Yes.
where multiple business unit exist, right? How we gonna run this information? Because big organization has multiple business unit, and people from one business unit connect with the different business unit for other works.
They can connect as many number of people they can list. We have done it. Now as I said, we are just doing it for 20,000 people.
Okay.
They can connect with as many, they can show.
So since you mentioned that you're doing it for 20,000 people, how would you go granular into it? Would it be like team-based or business-based?
Yeah, the
If
tool
you can
allow
throw
you
some
that
light on that.
choice. Tool allow you to get at a macro level insights, meso level insight, which is like a department, function, geography, and micro level insight, a specific team that you wanted to figure out. All three are possible. So Sangha, we can move on. So this is how and so the good news is it only takes 10 minutes. So there is no survey fatigue. And there's no confusing questions. If you just scroll up, you will get how the question is. So Sangha, can you just scroll up and let them read that question clearly so that. So this is purely personal, not based on a role. Can you just show one more question, then we can move on.
So we have bucketed this question into professional category right now. But when employees actually fill up this survey, they will see this as three independent questions, right? Who do you reach out to get your work done quickly? Who do you reach out to because you're seeking their expertise? Or who do you reach out to because you want to brainstorm or ideate, right? So that will take a longer screen, and obviously they'll be able to fill this individually for everyone. Just to simplify it for this particular conversation, we have put it in one screen. The interface looks this way.
For example, we have a question. We ask, whom have you reached out in the recent past when you wanted to share something personal? Now, that's a
There is
straightforward
one more
question.
question which has been written. Sorry, I just wanted to reiterate the same. Somebody has written that how will we know if the person most socially connected is making a positive or negative?
Yeah, we haven't reached there. We are only at the question level.
Okay.
Yeah, that person is highly advanced. So we'll come there. Yeah. Once we, talk about influence, theories, and all those things. Now, I just wanted to say that this is how we collect data. These are the questions so that we know what kind of a stuff are going through to get this data. Let's go back to the slide.
Yeah.
Any questions on questions that we can? Then we go step by step. Yeah. Now
I do have
yeah.
a question.
So how do we, couple of things, right? How do we ensure the authenticity of the inputs? It's a, I don't know if there is an easy answer to it. But I think the question within the question is the psychological safety, because it is sensitive data. And we are seeing, I'm sure when we launch it, it is said it is to do network analysis. So will that have implication on the authenticity of response? And what's the implication of the analysis in terms of the psychological safety of the employees?
Very good question. So look at this. So let's assume, let's get into a question very clearly. Whom all have you reached out when you wanted to ideate and improve something? It's a question. And if the study is pitched in building more networked organization, would that be a sensitive question?
No, it sounds.
Yeah.
Santosh?
That's
It
why
will generate.
questions are very simple, direct. Everything is about, we're not asking any opinion. Yeah, whom all do you connect? The only worry we have on this is, do they say they connect with more people? And which is true for any survey, right? So a survey that you use, I'm only showcasing this as a better tool, at least in my mind, than collecting people's perception, but trying to get into the network and trying to make assumptions from that.
So for this question, and I'm sure we all assume good intent, but again, if an employee responds with the intent that let me choose people who are more powerful and maybe my manager, because I should put their name. What if the survey reveals what I'm responding? Then I should include ABC as well. So things like that. So how do
All
we,
true. It's
by
all
design,
true.
yeah.
All true. All possibilities.
Sure.
Like in any service.
Sure.
All possible. Now let's go back to the slide deck, Shashanka. Otherwise, we won't have time. I just wanted to show a little bit how, what do you get? So this is how we collect data. Now, once we have a network diagram, what all assumptions and ideas and useful things we can get out of it? At least what all things we provide to our clients right now when they take the network analysis. So I thought how the interface look and how the product look like is what we can take. So the way we looked at that network diagram and looked at manual and, each one of them and tried to create what could be the engagement, what is a kind of collaboration potential, what could be the team connectivity. In a large system, when they do this, what all we can get? Currently, we may use multiple tools. We may use globally an engagement tool. Shashanka, I am okay talking, but whenever you are ready, you can lift it up, okay? So currently, I may have a specific tool I'm using for engagement. I may use another tool for team efficiency. I may use another tool for inclusion. One of the questions we were asking, can only one tool, which is based on network analysis, answer all those questions that we wanted to measure, which are subjective, which we have been measuring in organizations? So here is what a client get. If you scroll down, Shashanka, then I get. Yeah. We give you, so one of the theory and assumption that we are making is that for me to collaborate with somebody in another department, another function, another geography, another thing, and if there are two options, one, a stranger or someone whom I know, whom I have some relationship, and then the collaboration potential is higher. Swati, if you're okay, we can do that once we just go with step by step what all you can get and then get into intervention. And most companies, by the way, don't use it from an intervention perspective. They do it every year. to understand what is engagement level, what is a collaboration patterns, what is a team efficiency. So almost like a health checkup, but we can specifically look at some of the interventions also.
Sure, thank you.
Some other questions in between. Yeah, so we look at collaboration from if people are connected in the recent past, either for work or with personal reasons between two departments, between two functions. So what we define collaboration as we remove the relationships people have with the manager, which is for us, that's a mandatory thing. So our product will have this definition. How do we measure? When you click on it, first it will say, how do we measure collaboration? What is collaboration, which is our definition? What is it from a network science perspective? See, you can see the diagram on your right side. That's when Shashanka clicked. This is what the client gets. So you'll say that, okay, I wanted to look at collaboration pattern within a team, between the teams, between two specific teams that I wanted to look at, between two geographies that I wanted to look at. So all kind of choices under this collaboration potential, on how things are happening, where is it happening more, where is it happening less. And to Nagvi had asked a question last time, which is called organizational context. You might find a function like internal audit not collaborating with anybody, and you will know that that's okay. That's a role. So you'll also have the data. But our tool will help you to figure out, to an extent, some of the consulting firms have used our tool globally to understand after post-merger, are there collaboration happening between these two teams? Yes, merger happened, but are they two distinct teams or are they collaboratively working? So the collaboration itself, at what level, what cuts, you wanted to figure out whether our leadership team members collaborate with each other. You can just drill down and see what's happening with the leadership team. Are they, because if the leadership team is not collaborating, it's chances are that the teams below them will demonstrate less level of collaboration. So purely from a network perspective, we try to address this at different cuts. Go back session. Inclusion. In fact, while there are many tools that we can use to study diversity, but I don't know whether we have really a tool other than studying relationship pattern to see people are included or not. I'll give you one more example, team efficiency potential. Yes, Sasanga, if you can click that one. Yeah. So each one of this will have a definition of what do we mean by team efficiency. That's with a network diagram. So you can see that. So for this group, it's very fundamentally simple. Like Sherlock Holmes tell Watson, elementary Dr. Watson. It is simple. A fair degree of internal connections within the team and a fair degree of connection to other teams, we will call high team efficiency. Let me repeat that statement. A fair degree of connections within a team and fair degree of connections to other teams, we will call high team efficiency. And then if there are 2,000 teams in your company, the way you define teams, you can grade them which teams show higher team efficiency. You can then correlate that with the performance data. In fact, we did this with the Schindler Electricals, and they did multiple times. And they tried to correlate the team efficiency score with the performance of the teams. And they found it positively correlating. Yeah, Niru, are you asking a question or something?
No.
Okay. Then there's a basic info that clients can use to figure out how do they use this data and what they can do. And there is a complete section only on leadership team dynamics. And a section on two important things I'll quickly talk about. In every organization, there will be these informal communities. And we don't know what forms them. It can be region. All South Indians can form an informal community. It can be gender. It can be Gen X having their informal community. It can be caste, religion, whatever it is. But the tool will detect these informal communities and also show you who are in the center of these informal communities. Almost exactly what our politicians are doing during elections, informally and intuitively, tool can do scientifically. That's how they choose the people to stand for elections.
Yeah. Sir, can I come in with a question?
Please, please.
Sir, have you looked at the possibility of correlating this data against predicting attrition?
No, attrition is with the engagement and connection. We haven't looked at till now with informal communities.
Yeah.
Attrition, we look at people who have less connections, people who are less engaged, which again, Schindler was the one who specifically used this for attrition, and they found a high correlation.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, because attrition data is easily available, and then there is a company which has done an analysis like this. So it's easy to see, can we correlate the degree of connectedness to the attrition?
Oh yeah, connected to attrition. By the way, just for this group, there is this psychologist who created this term called psychodrama. His name is Jacob Moreno. Jacob Moreno created a word called sociometry. He was in charge of a girls' hostel where girls who had issues would be sent to stay. And Jacob Moreno started making network diagrams of the class. And Jacob Moreno will predict if one girl ran away from the hostel, who else will run away based on the network diagram. So if you really look at type Jacob Moreno and his network diagram, you will actually get these cases. And this was so many years ago. Thank you. We'll just go to the home screen, and then because we have less time, and ask if they wanted anything specifically wanted to look at. So this is what you get. Driving change and transformation is, we will show you people. Okay, here is what, there was a question. Remember, somebody who is connected might not be positively influencing. You're 100% right. I said I'll take that question much later. We calculate influence within the network, not just by having connection. Suppose, let's say that Neeru has 5 connections. And Poonam in her company has only, Neeru has, let's say, 10 connections and Poonam has only 5 connections. But Neeru's 10 connection can further take her only to 200 people. But Poonam's 5 connections can further take her to 300 people. So influence score of Poonam will increase. So it's called a Google algorithm. Okay, let me give you some, so this is what we give. I will give you some examples of what clients have done with it. For example, one of the large fintech firm found that the newly hired people who have less than 2 years in their company are not integrated into the network. They are all in the periphery of the network, and their attrition at that level was very high. And they also decided, using the network, whom to connect these people so that they can get integrated faster into the company. Now, that's not something that we have given, but clients can play around with the network diagrams and figure out and what we need. So other than the standard things, so standard things that what we're doing is what HR is currently engaged with. So there is engagement, there is collaboration, there is about team efficiency. They need to drive change and transformation. They need to look at well-being. They need to look at collaborate. So there are standard things, but clients can go and use our network diagram to figure out specific things that they are. If they say that our attrition data saying that newcomers are having big challenge, and then they can go ahead. How is the network diagram of newcomers? What really going? The network diagram wave outputs related to it. So Ratna, we don't capture because remember, we can't capture a concept. We only can capture connections. And we need to create theory around it, saying that there's more connection. So that is how what we have created called well-being and burnout. So how our theory here is people who have large number of people depending on them, but they don't depending anybody, they don't go, we find that high chances of burnout. So everything that we connect is only with networks. What is the visualized outcome of all this exercise? Outcome, Ashok, what you get is what I mentioned. You know that from burnout perspective, who are the people? You get names of people who can drive change and transformation at different levels in the organization. Let's say you wanted to find out who are our high potential employees. You wanted to know that whether they have influence. You wanted to know what is the real engagement levels, which part of your organization is highly engaged, low engaged. You wanted to know what is a collaborate. So whatever we mention is what you get at the end. And client has access to this, and they can play around and create their own network diagrams. Okay, I would use some time to really, have some questions. And Sanga, if you can go back to the slide, please.
Do we also take a quick look at the network diagram, the actual one? Or should we?
Maybe how the network diagram can be created. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Niru, psychometric surveys is to study an individual. We make a mistake when we use a psychometric to get an aggregate sets. They are not designed for that, which is a much later calculation. We gave participating in this survey, let's say 20,000 people of Sundaram, individual report on their social capital connections and how they can improve that. Is using that old grid theory. Have you heard about the grid theory on a task and a people-oriented manager? And the concept of 9.9 came from that theory. Some managers are completely task-oriented and they can get into micromanaging. Some managers are highly people-oriented. So because we ask whether it is task or people that way, that's possible. Yeah. So this is a kind of a network diagram that client will be able to create. And when they hover over it, they will get the name of the person, who is that person, who is connected, and they can generate any kind of a network diagram of any teams and do further analysis.
Looking at these networks usually gives the most insights to a leader.
Okay, let's get back into the slide, please.
Santosh, can I ask one question here?
Please.
So can this method also be used for organization? So I come from non-profit world, and so can we use this for an organization's net social capital rather than persons, employees' capital?
or whatever organization you are, whether it is non-profit or for profit, it is an organization, right? The people.
Right.
We're
Yes.
doing this
So
with
what
a
I
large
mean
number
is
of social sector companies.
external. Yeah. What I mean is external. No, not
Yeah,
internal.
I can go and do this with a village to see the social capital of village. In fact, we are
Yes,
planning to
yes,
map
yes.
social capital of Indian states.
Exactly. Okay.
So what are some of the things, and I will just list down. The standard things you can get a better hang of it is engagement, collaboration, inclusion, team efficiency, managerial styles, uh, influencers, who are the people who are driving change. We also have something called ONPS. I didn't touch there because that's a concept in itself to share, saying that people who advocate for the organization, do they have influence or they have less influence? Or people who do not advocate for the organization, are they high influencers? So what is the level of a score? That's slightly more complex, so I thought I'll just avoid only that part. So fundamentally, you can look at it in one tool, you get multiple insights. Another way to look at is what we call exploratory analysis. You want to do your own analysis about attrition. You want to look at your own analysis on how do I improve my leadership team? they are not collaborating. So you have a data to start with. Tomorrow, one of your manager wants to take his team out for an outbound and something. You can take a printout of their team and say, currently, this is it. You can focus on improving this is part. You wanted to explore saying that, let's say Madhavan heads the sales team of TVS. So the information that my sales guys get from my customers, is it flowing back into senior leadership? So it also allows you this exploratory.
I have a question.
Yes, please, Abhurva.
Yes, I wanted to ask what would be the minimum tenure of a person to participate in this, in terms of the fact that I'm wondering if very fresh employees would be able to get us fetch us good data, or we're looking at a minimum tenure profile.
There is nothing. See, is that guy supposed to work?
Yeah.
Then he has to reach out, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's not able to. Yeah. But you can keep it in mind when the data analysis come, because you can give the cut, saying that, oh my God, the people who have joined in the last 6 months don't have enough relationship. What can I do?
That could be an interesting development, yes.
That's a case which I said that basically it was Paytm when Rohit Thakur was the CHRO, and he did a webinar on how he used this data to fix some of the issues at that point of time.
Santosh, one question that came up for me. Is there any research on introversion, extroversion versus power of networking? And I'm just curious that will this put somebody who does the work well but is not a great networker, does this put them in a bad light? Yeah, so if there is any thinking you've done, or if there is any research around it.
So one of the words that I have never used in the last 1 hour is the word called networker. So there's nothing to do with the networker, because every human being, introvert or extrovert, establish relationships in that way.
Sure.
So we're not. So your question is largely applicable to people whom we use the term networker. You know, those social butterflies who put up on website, Facebook, saying that having breakfast and feeling blissed kind of people, which introverts won't do,
Sure.
Yeah, here we are fundamentally mapping that organization.
No, that's a good distinction. Thank
Yeah.
you, Santosh.
Okay, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so these are the clients that we have already used. Egon Center basically use our tool for their clients. So Egon hasn't used it for them, but when they have used it for one I mentioned was for the integration of two companies. One case was for succession planning for an Indian bank. One case they used it for a large Indian insurance company to build more collaborative teams. We are currently doing this with one of the large Tata Group organization, a very specific study they are doing at a shop floor using network analysis. We are also doing this with a district in Bihar government healthcare system to see how can we help government organizations to be much more democratic. Now I can look at any questions.
Sir, have you seen any organization using it for improving the learning effectiveness?
No, they are using the data on managerial styles to design learning programs.
Okay.
That I know one client.
It can help them better articulate the need, basically. That's what.
Yeah. All, as I said, the clients sometimes only when they come and tell me that they have used it for this purpose, because once they have the data, they could play around and figure out many things. As I said, we give you ready-made in one go, in 10 minutes work with an employee, you're getting a report on all kind of cuts possible on engagement, collaboration, inclusion, team efficiency, and driving change, and managerial styles. Additionally, you can figure out what all would you like to do with this.
Very interesting, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And
can I ask the question if that's okay, Santosh?
please, Shama.
So do you, I mean, all of it, if you look at it in terms of how all of it gets translated for a business, is from the lens of that, all of it boils down to the perspective that how better we can retain certain set of employees. Provide, because this tool kind of empowers us to study the different relationship that exists. So, do you also have organizations who have came back to you and they have kind of witnessed these outcomes for them? So it kind of gives me a reassurance when I go back to the CXO and kind of tell what is it that product can empower the organization. Yeah.
I always say that something new and revolutionary like this, the initial people who will go will be risk takers and curious people, because otherwise people will comfortably follow what we have been doing.
That's true.
So I tend to give very objective things. The tool can show you that people who are extremely important based on the network pattern. Now, based on your performance data, you can decide whether you want to hold them, how you want to hold them, what you need to do in that way. Yeah. And as I said, the clients have this data available with them for a year. So they always, one of the clients that we did this, the CHRO moved out. There was two internal candidates. And later they told me they use their networks to figure out whom to make the CHRO. So all possibilities.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. And I hope this would have evoked some kind of an interest, as the first slide said, that a different way to see, understand, and measure organizations and develop organizations. And it also gave some insight on when we are measuring, we need to have a definition of what we are measuring. And networks may be an interesting way to look at organizational dynamics. Shashanka, do you have any last words to the group or anybody else from the team?
I think
Santosh, if we require more information before I recommend it to a couple of clients, how do I take this forward?
We have a deck which typically explain each of this much more. I didn't want to take that deck through you because I want to make it more interactive.
Mm-hmm.
Then the website, which is oglens.com.
Okay.
And of course, then after that, if they wanted to have a connect and discuss, happy to do that.
Right. If you can just share that tech with me, I'll just go through it. We have a similar project with a couple of clients. I will have conversations, and if they had more clarity, can I get back to you?
Anytime, anytime.
Thank you.
I also do something with the senior leaders in organization. I do a 90-minute session on building social capital and why leaders need to start paying attention to the concept of social capital. And that's just, that's a free session just because I'm keen to build that awareness. So any large organization, so I've done it at least for 30 organizations in the last 1 year. Happy to, do that. At least then the leaders know this concept of social capital. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a brilliant,
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
disrupted and innovative way of looking at social capital. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Bye-bye.